Welcome to the Mediocre to Magnificent podcast. I'm your co-host, Braxton Matson, and your host, Lee A. Williams, and I just want to say thank you for tuning in because you are what makes this pure magnificence. You are the ripple effect of magnificence, and we are going to bring you a message that will give you insight, inspire you, motivate you, and challenge you to not only grow in your magnificence, but let you know that you are magnificent in everything you do. So stay tuned, you don't want to miss it. Lee, man,
Yes, sir.
it's always good to see you.
Good seeing you.
We're on part 2
Part 2.
from going from your beliefs to outcomes. So to recap,
Recap.
the first one we talked about the feelings and emotions side.
We did.
And how important that was, like the linchpin, if you will, of like all the other steps involved to reach the outcome. And I feel like that episode really hit home as far as like how we really do have to understand the emotions we feel. The feelings are part of that, but the core emotions is what you have to kind of understand to get to the next step.
The next step.
So the next step we've got that we're talking about is your actions.
The actions.
The actions. So when I talked about like how we really got to understand our feelings and emotions, that really does fall in line with your actions. Like that is an action, not a step.
Oh, like getting in touch with
Yes. Yeah, because, I mean, let me put it this way. Do you feel, like in your opinion, do you feel like we can control our feelings?
our feelings. Yes.
You do.
But not our emotion. Or you're saying it's flip-flop. We can control our emotions, but not our feelings.
You're right.
Okay, yeah. I get
So
that.
it's the way, and I just, you know, it was brought up in one of the counseling sessions I had.
Yeah.
And I got to think, I'm like, what do you mean we can't control our feelings? Because that's what was brought up. Like, you can't control your feelings.
Yeah, you feel the way you feel.
You feel the way you feel. Like, you can't control that.
Yeah.
You can control your actions. And it's like, I had to sit with myself for that one for a second. Because I'm like, you know what? You're right. Because sometimes when you feel a certain way, like, man, you could get like frustrated with something and you're like feeling like, and your feelings,
Why does that seem
your
so
feelings
relevant?
take control. Like it does. Like your feelings do take control of your actions.
Why does that feel so relevant?
Man, you know, I have a whole lot of respect for people who do audio, video.
Right. Because
there are so many different things that happen. Like, I can't even explain them, man. I really can't explain it.
Especially, and I'm sitting there like, well, we didn't change anything.
We didn't change nothing. And then it's like, what does this thing do?
Right. So
And it's like Bermuda Triangle stuff going on. I'm like,
Bermuda Triangle. Oh my gosh.
But that's kind of where I want to fall with this, because after this is the outcomes. And I really want to stress how the actions have to be, you have to know your feelings to get to the emotion in order to make the right action to take.
Yeah. So you got an example?
Oh, man, it could be, I mean, a good one is like parenting.
Okay.
Parenting is a good one. So say you're like disciplining your kids.
Mm-hmm.
everybody knows they're going to push your buttons.
Oh, they're push.
They're going to push the buttons. And you have, and this is one of those things where you have to know your feelings real quick, real fast, or else it's going to go south quick.
Right.
And because the thing is you don't want to ever I don't ever want to get in a power struggle with my kids. That shouldn't happen. Shouldn't happen at all.
Shouldn't happen.
And that's one of the bigger, I think that's one of the most challenging ones you can do, because you really want to discipline your children, but at the same time, you're dealing with those emotions. So a lot of times, and not just for like disciplining your kids, but even with either if it's work related, if it's dealing with your business, if it's dealing with certain situations that don't make you feel a certain way, like a negative way,
Right.
you have to take that healthy pause.
So you're saying, like, in my language, my version is like, okay, one of your children did something, they deserve a spanking, but you're angry. Like,
Yeah.
you're angry right now.
Right.
So the healthy pause is say, okay, I'm not going to come in there and give you spanking right now.
Right.
Because I'm angry. And it might go past discipline.
Right.
And be
Yeah.
your outlet for your anger. I mean, is that what you're
It
telling
could,
me?
yes, exactly. I mean, another one could be addictions. You know, it kind of brings me back to the whole, like with marriage counseling, it deals with this cycle.
Mm-hmm.
So something happens. So an outside source, an outside factor, causes you to feel a certain way.
Mm.
And when you feel a certain way, there's a point in the cycle where either you're going to respond through the feeling, the emotion that you're having, and you're going to do this certain thing, like say for an addiction, like alcohol or something like that. You're going to go to drinking, or you're going to go to something else. It could be anything, because you feel that certain way, but you're not checking that feeling. You're not taking that pause. Like for me, a good example would be like with a marriage. If something's wrong, I go into this fix it mode.
You're the fixer, huh?
So, but the thing is
Fixer-upper.
if I go and I fix something, what may necessarily not need to be fixed, it triggers another act. Like my actions that I took from that affect someone. It doesn't just affect you. It affects somebody else.
Right.
So in a marriage, it's going to affect your spouse.
Mm-hmm.
So your spouse is going to respond. It's going to feel a certain way,
Right.
which is then going to trigger her or, him to act a certain way. And if it's not the certain way, guess what? The cycle starts all over again. But it's the same thing with any kind of addiction. But it stems off of understanding your emotions. You have to take the healthy pause to do that, because there's a difference. I was looking into some articles. So like emotions, they come from your limbic system. So that's like your primary primitive brain, almost like the fight or flight kind of thing. It relates to animal. Like every species has this type of like the limbic system set up. But the neocortex is rational thought. So that's more of like you noticing things. And a good way the article had put it was, when you want to try to understand your emotions, you can't criticize it.
Now, what does that mean?
So a lot of times, like for me, if I feel a certain way and I don't want to feel that way,
Like, give a specific one.
like if I'm stressed out over something, let me get a good example. Say I didn't do something, like like if I say I'm going to do something,
Right.
and then I don't do it, or I don't do it at a certain time.
Yeah.
Good example. I was late today.
Oh, that
for the
ruined,
podcast.
that ruined you.
Well, it didn't really ruin me.
No, I'm just
But
terrorizing you.
it made me feel a certain way because I wasn't on time.
Yeah.
But you can't criticize that, because if you criticize that, then you're kind of putting yourself down. And then you go down this rabbit hole of like negative emotions. You don't like, it throws everything off. What you have to have is a more curiosity of why you felt that way. So that changes the dynamic. Like, you're not criticizing it. You're trying to understand, well, why did I feel like that?
Yeah.
Because there's a deeper level to it. There always is.
So what, in that instance, what was the deeper level for you?
Well, for me, it was just for me understanding, like, hey, you're late because you were getting, for me, I was just in thought with scripture in the morning. So I got a little sidetracked on my time. I was thinking about the podcast content. And then I'm like, oh, like, I'm going to be
So
late.
by whose definition were you late?
Well, and that's another, but that's the other thing. That's the other thing. When you do that, when you take those actions like that,
Yeah.
you're doing it because you're trying to please others. You're not taking yourself into account.
Because just by pure the example you gave, like in scripture, meditating, looking at the
Right.
content, getting yourself present, it's like, to me, in this example, that sounds like you're right on time.
Exactly.
I mean,
And some people, like for me, sometimes it's harder for me to understand that.
now if you would have told me, it's like,
I'm late because I didn't get up. I was like,
like,
nah, that's a
I
different
hit
story.
snooze, I just rolled out
Right.
of bed, like, I forgot to brush my teeth, so I went back. I mean, I don't know. Like, that's a different, it's like, okay, that feeling that you've created might be warranted.
Right.
But if everything's all in line,
Yeah.
that's why I asked, well, by whose definition?
Right.
Because that's created. And you did it yourself.
Exactly. And you've got to understand, like, you're going to always have like these, I wouldn't say positive, but like a negative thought.
Yeah.
You're going to have those.
So let me ask you this. So when you sent the text saying, hey, I'm running behind, or whatever you said, what was
the energy behind it?
Yeah, what was the energy? Or did that text relinquish, and that was the action that was necessary to get you out of that feeling emotional, like that taking you to that cycle?
I see where you're going.
Because
Yeah.
because we're talking about action,
Right.
So was the
So
text the action that switched it for you?
The text, well, really the action that got me out of it was before that.
Okay.
Really, the text was just me to let you know, because I'm on time.
Yeah.
So if I'm not on time, it's like
something's
up.
wrong.
So I'm like, I'm just gonna text Lee, because I was already halfway here when I made the text. But what got me to the point where it was like I relinquished that was it me saying, hey, I was being present with my scripture. I was like, it wasn't anything negative. It was just like, hey, you just got into it, which is okay. Like it was a good thing.
Yeah.
You know? But it's just letting people know.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So for other people,
Being authentic.
for certain, like, okay, feeling triggered an emotion.
Yep.
And then you'd have a healthy pause. But we're talking about action.
Yes.
To say, so the action doesn't necessarily have to be like a physical manifestation of something, like,
No.
oh, I text Lee, or does it have, the action has to be like you switch the channel in your own mind.
Yeah. And that's kind of where I want to get with this episode is the true action I feel when we're dealing with getting to the outcome of what you want is dealing with the internal. Like it's dealing with the internal, like battle, I guess you could say, with your feelings, emotions, and then taking the action. And the trick is the more you do it, the more you understand it, the more you know why you're doing this. Like for me, it's a big thing for me to be in scripture with it, because it shows me if I feel this way or if I do this certain thing, these are my outcomes.
So let's just do this for fun. So when you text, And I think this helps. I think this helps. And then I
Yeah.
respond. What do I respond?
You said okay.
Right. So I already said
So
by whose definition, but just
Right.
role play for just a second. If I would have said, what if I said, what do you mean? What if I changed my okay?
Like, what do you mean you gonna be late?
Right. What if I said that? Now, because we said it's
Well, if you would
internal.
have said
So
that,
you take an action that you make it
yeah,
external that says, okay,
it's
that's
affected somebody else.
right.
Now we're at the affect somebody else part.
Right. And I said,
Right.
well, what do you mean? Do you allow yourself to get back down into the
No.
rabbit hole of
No.
like, but somebody might.
No, yeah, because somebody might, but for me, it's just
What do you
like
mean
the
you running
level.
late? Man, I got up at
It has for me. It deals with conviction. Like it deals with conviction because if you truly, like, say you are late, and it wasn't out of like maliciousness or anything like that. The conviction in you is going to tell you that when that person makes that response.
Yeah.
Like, I can't control how you feel.
Yeah. Can't
I
control it.
really can't.
Can't.
You can't.
Right.
But you can control your actions.
Yeah. But so part of it is, so do you think that what was my response going to be?
Right.
Was it normal?
Yeah.
Or what if I was just to start playing the
So
game?
if you would have,
what do you mean? And like, because I know you was like, but that doesn't help the situation.
right. And if you would have said something like that, I would have just told you point blank, hey, I got sidetracked on my scripture reading and stuff. Like, I would have been honestly legit with you about what happened.
So it took ownership.
You have to take ownership of that. Because the thing is,
So
like,
that's a great action. Ownership's a great action.
It's a huge action. Like,
So
when
especially when you talk about with like spouses and some of that stuff, it's like, why didn't say that? Well, it doesn't matter.
Right.
What I said made you feel that way.
Right.
So I had to, like, that might not have been my intention, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
The person still felt
That
way
way.
they felt.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to take ownership and say, yeah, you felt that way. Because I said it.
Right.
So it's like the triggering of, okay, like, the action, you're involved in this.
Right.
Because sometimes you want to take yourself out of it, like you're not involved.
Yeah. No.
You're involved.
You're involved. You're involved.
So the same way when said like, what do you mean you're running late, man? You gotta be kidding me. Like, like what if I, put it on thick,
and then
put it on real thick.
Think about it that way. If we would have went that route and then say I didn't, like, say my conviction or like I was point blank wrong because I did get up late. Like, the whole dynamic with this episode would be different. Like, it triggers that all the way down.
Right.
You know what I mean?
But so in this example, that's why I said by whose definition.
Yeah.
Because this might have literally been orchestrated.
Mm-hmm.
It's already been orchestrated. Man. Now, if it would have been more than 10 minutes.
Well, yeah.
Now,
if it would have been more than 10 minutes, something was off on that one. Something would have been off on that. But yeah, that's kind of what I was wanting to stress on this one. Is like your actions, your feelings play a huge factor in what you're going to do. Yeah. They do.
I mean,
your emotions do.
Some of this stuff is, and we've talked about traffic type stuff and rear view mirrors and braking and people flying past you on the road. But have you ever like pulled out and like the car that was coming, not to the point where accident, but they had to slow down more than you anticipated with pulling out?
Yeah.
And it's probably one of those horn honking circumstances, but the person doesn't honk the horn.
That ties into
or you're the person that the person turns into the shopping plaza and it's like they're really not on their side of the road, so you're pulling up and it's like they're over the line. In some instances, we know, especially depending on where you're at in the country, they're gonna honk the horn.
Yeah.
Like, it's just part of the culture.
It's part of the culture.
But the thought process is like, if you're not in danger, You're not startled. It wasn't that, okay, that they need to be seen. At what point does the action be like, and you honk the horn?
Right. That's so funny you brought that up though, man. Because it kind of relates to me. It's like you have this feeling or emotion. You feel angry, frustrated, happy. You could feel excited.
Right.
For me, like I could be like, I'm super excited about this.
Right.
But your external actions don't show it.
So that's because I'm.
Or it could be opposite. You could be angry, but you don't show it. You don't honk the horn.
You don't honk the horn. That's why I said that like that.
But
Because
why?
the horn is a very like it's a different deal.
Right.
So you're like, okay, this is serious. Like it's
Yeah.
the level of your alertness
Yes.
has spiked. So like, say if I'm the driver, because I'm not a horn honker.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we could probably be playing chicken. Like, they're coming right at me, and I wouldn't be like,
You're not gonna honk the horn.
no. And then maybe because I'm thinking in the thought process, and it might be some training background type stuff, but it would be because the energy that I would give to honk the horn, even though it's very limited, very little energy, I would rather give the energy to, if we're saying this, get out the way.
Yeah.
So, but we're still talking to a lot of different people with a lot of different personality types.
Yeah.
They show up different on the Navigate the Ocean assessment. And it's to say, but they truly could benefit
Yes.
from honking the horn to
I totally
expressed
relate
like,
to that.
hey man, your actions made me feel this way, and I'm putting it out there, and I'm putting it out there in a way that you can't avoid. You know,
Right.
it's not
that totally, because I'm like octopus.
I'm clear. That's
I'm
why.
octopus.
That's why I came
so
up
I'm
with
like
this.
I'm kind of like this.
Example. It's like,
I'm kind of like myself. Kind of do my thing.
are you gonna honk the horn?
You know, I don't get my button pushed, or at least I don't show that I get my buttons pushed.
They're pushed.
And the thing is
All
like,
8 of them.
when you suppress those emotions,
Yeah.
it doesn't make it better. Like, you have to find a way or an outlet to express those emotions. Some of it's therapy.
Yeah.
Like, if you're in like, you could take it from example, like a child. When they get frustrated with something, they act on the emotions, and their actions are acting out. Like, they act out their emotion.
Mm-hmm.
You got to do the same thing, but it's got to be in an environment where it's not going to affect people in a certain way that could be threatening in a way.
Man,
But
I told Jamie just the other day, like, man, that's why I take martial arts, man.
yeah,
So you can go somewhere and you can punch somebody in the face,
and that's it.
and it's like it's a part of it.
I was reading an article, and it was crazy. Like, it was dealing with like a lady who would take out her anger, and what she would do is she would go and buy these like just ceramic plates, like a bunch of them,
Like break.
and she would go outside and she'd throw them up against the wall to express the anger.
To have an outlet.
You got to have an outlet for these things. You have to have an outlet for your emotions, because if you keep these emotions in, it's not going to do you any justice. It's not going to do the people around you any justice, because you're not speaking your truth.
Right. Yeah.
But you have to find the right outlet. You can't just
not
act out in some way that is like seriously life-threatening. Like, that doesn't.
Yeah. The same way you're talking about like addictions, don't let it trigger you to go drink.
Right,
You know
because
you're supposed to be drinking.
that affects other people. I mean, you drunk driving. You know, it could be an alcoholic addiction, and all of a sudden you're in a car accident and lives change.
Life change. And you could have signed up for a martial arts class.
Or maybe you're too patient. And you need to like let people know, because they don't know. They don't know.
Yeah, people don't know.
You know.
I mean, I won't never forget. I mean, even with the husband wife It's like, ladies, I'm speaking to the ladies right now. Most importantly, more so the ladies. The husbands don't know. Like, just tell them.
Yeah.
Please just tell me. Because I might be like, oh, he's smart, he coach, he
Yeah.
got a
And
podcast, he write books, he's this, like,
And
I still
men,
need you to tell me.
men, make sure when they tell you, you act on it. Don't let it just sit there. Like when they tell you, like truly act on it.
Yeah.
Like that's, it's a ebb and flow, man.
Action.
But yeah, emotions and actions.
Actions, man.
It's really tricky because a lot of it deals with the heart.
Yeah.
And you've got
So we got more to come with this, huh?
Oh yeah.
I mean,
we haven't even got to the begin. Like we haven't even got to the core of all this stuff.
We're just scratching the surface right now.
But yeah,
that's good.
Scratching the surface. But yeah, the next is your outcomes. So
let's hear outcomes.
We've gone through how to deal with the feelings, emotions. I think I put a link on the YouTube thing for like a feelings wheel where people could go and check that out.
That's wonderful, man.
So check that out. I mean, there's times where I'll do it like, we've done it in counseling, like I said in the podcast.
Yeah.
Every time I go in there,
yeah.
How you feeling? And you got to pick 3.
How you feeling right now?
And it's like hopeful. It's a daily thing, like daily thing. Do that.
Hopeful.
Right. And then where does that lead to the core emotion?
Yeah, that's good.
And think about it. But then that leads to your actions, which you have to separate. Understand that your feelings, emotions are not the actions. Like they're separate things. You can control your actions.
Yeah.
You can't control the feelings.
Yeah.
You can temper some.
So because for people like, please have the intelligence, the awareness that there's some person that's like, I'm gonna be a few minutes late. Okay. But there's some person that saying okay is that what they need to have the healthy pause.
Right.
Because they're always the person that says, well, what do you mean? Mm-hmm. So you got to know where you show up and how you show up.
Yeah.
Then there's a person that always says okay that might need to be the person to say, well, what do you mean?
Right.
So you have to know where you're at. You have to know who you're talking to. Mm-hmm. And you have to know the circumstance in which does me saying in this instance, that situation that we created for this to say, well, what do you mean? Does that help?
Yeah. Does that help you?
Does it help the whole?
Does it help the whole dynamic of this situation?
So like there's many levels. But that's where I'm just driving the point home for saying the healthy pause piece.
Right.
What's the point? Like, especially if you use me and you and this.
Right.
What do you mean? Like, why do I say that?
Yeah. Like you said, it doesn't really help the situation.
So for one, it doesn't help the situation. For 2, I don't have a problem saying how I feel.
Right.
So what do you go with?
Mm-hmm.
Well, let me just stick the dagger in his side.
Well, and that's dealing with your heart there.
I mean, yeah, right? Aren't we talking about that?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
It's like, come on. Like, people got to be smarter than that. That's why we talk about firing the shot, violating the rules of engagement. Like, why are you going to shoot a shot?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm going to get this man further off his game. We get here to do the podcast recording. Do I want him to be off the game, or I need him to be?
Or I let technical issues get in the way that throw off the whole flow of the whole podcast. Like, no.
You got to be smarter than that.
You got to be smarter than that. Like, you check your feelings, check them.
Right.
Pause, take the action.
Even if you got to be like the lady to go out there, you got a box of plates from the dollar store. You know what I'm saying? You just got them on standby. Like, hold on, Lee, I got to go outside for a second.
Oh, man, I'm kind of interested in that, man. I feel like I want to go buy some plates.
No, because we've had stuff when I'm coaching clients, and like you get the pillow, and like you're punching on the pillow. You like you get it, you yell into it. Like It's a real thing. There's people that really have stuff that they need to face, release, let go,
Right.
not hold on to, because then next thing you know, you become the volcano that's hadn't erupted in 50 years.
And I really commend people that like they do that. They take the right step forward.
What happens
and
when
handling
a volcano erupts?
Well, it's not good. I know that much.
Right. So now we got casualties.
Right.
So now the people you love and care about has become a casualty. But all you had to do is share, speak, and every little while you see the smoke come up from the
Every little while.
active volcano. It's different from like little then like, okay,
Eruption.
there's lava flowing down in the streets.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Right.
and you can say like, oh, that's a simple analogy. Well, some of this stuff is simple. Let's not make it harder
Right.
than it needs to be. That's an action.
That is an action. It's not rocket science.
We're not talking rocket science stuff.
Just speak your truth.
That's good. Well,
But yeah, I feel good about it, man.
yes, sir.
Loved it.
Loved it. Till next time.
This is your co-host here, Braxton Matson, and Lee and I just want to say thank you so much for tuning into this episode. We hope you've enjoyed it just as much as we did making it, but we couldn't do it without you. So please hit that like button, leave us a rating, leave us a review. Let us know what topic or subject that you would like us to talk about in your journey from mediocre to magnificent. But most of all, share it. Be the ripple effect of magnificence and know that you are magnificent in everything you do. Till next time.